years ago, the Philippines gained its independence from the United States. The American flag came down and the Philippine flag came up, along with the hopes of a brand new nation. Since then, relations have endured through trade, defense, and deep cultural ties. But it's never been a perfect relationship. 80 years on, what is this alliance actually for, and for whom?
There is no such thing as a free lunch, so to speak. You know, there's always a payback for everything.
No one will defend Philippine sovereignty but the Filipinos.
The defense cooperation is really very important because of what we're facing in the South China Sea.
Some hard facts about the relationship. The Philippines is the U.S.'s oldest treaty ally in Asia. Washington is dotted with reminders of the country's shared political and military history. The U.S. is its top export market and a major investor. And the relationship extends beyond governments. More than 4 million Filipino Americans live in the United States, sending home billions of dollars home each year. But the reality of being closely aligned with a superpower is that its decisions often affect you far more than the other way around. Take the Iran war. When the US and Israel attacked Iran and the Strait of Hormuz closed, energy prices surged around the world. The Philippines declared an energy emergency, a reminder that an ally's decision can come at a cost.
It has been said, of course, by this administration of President Trump that they're doing it for the world because Iran should not have nuclear weapons. But nonetheless, I think that the Filipino will have to realize that whatever happens all over the world obviously will affect us.
That's the reality of the relationship. What Washington does sends ripples outward, and Manila has to live with the consequences. But accepting that reality isn't the same as being comfortable with it, and Filipinos can't be faulted for asking, what else can go wrong?
I think it's a little bit of a wake-up call for the Philippines. I was looking through all sorts of different social media accounts. I tried to study disinformation tactics going on in the Philippines. And one clip that kept on popping up for me were altered videos of this extent of devastation of US bases in the Middle East, showing completely bombed out facilities, smoking ruins, unable to do anything, with comments in the tune of, is this what's going to happen to our EDCA bases? Is this what befalls us next if we continue on with the United States?
There are other recent examples of the Philippines being caught up in sweeping U.S. policy decisions. Take the Liberation Day tariffs of 2025. Philippine exports were hit with a tariff of 20%. President Bongbong Marcos traveled personally to Washington to negotiate and get that down to 19%. Still higher than some U.S. allies in the region.
I remember hearing a lot of frustration thinking that the tariff rates for other U.S. allies, namely Japan or South Korea, were far lower than what the Philippines got, and it raised some questions.
According to Ambassador Romualdez, the Philippines did what it had always done, adapted, and it sought exemptions wherever it could.
Of course, in the beginning we were very concerned about it, but then we were able to adjust and we were able to get some of the exemptions for some of the agricultural products that we export to the United States because the U.S. does not produce any of these things.
The pattern is familiar. The larger partner decides, the smaller one accommodates. So what's the reward? Well, the most obvious answer is security, especially when it comes to China. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty commits the United States and the Philippines to defend each other in the event of an armed attack. And then there's the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, which gives the U.S. access to Philippine bases and allows troops and equipment to be pre-positioned. The theory is simple. Their presence helps ensure that they might never have to be used. In the South China Sea, Chinese vessels have repeatedly rammed Philippine boats and blocked resupply missions within waters that an international tribunal ruled belong to the Philippines. Just 100 miles to the north lies Taiwan, which Beijing claims and has vowed to take by force if necessary. Any conflict there would put the Philippines on the front lines of a regional security crisis. Joint exercises between the Philippines and the U.S., known as Balikatan or shoulder to shoulder, have expanded dramatically. Balikatan 2026 involved 17,000 troops from 7 countries. For Foreign Secretary Tess Lazaro, this defense cooperation gives reassurance to Filipinos.
They're just happy that there's a treaty. The United States will be there and will protect us at a certain situation. And this just gives a lot of confidence. I still think that the Mutual Defense Treaty is really not, how do you say, it's not provocative. It is actually a deterrent. That's how we see. That's how we see it.
On the streets of Manila, many share that view.
Philippines and U.S. has a good relationship in terms of providing assistance with our country.
U.S. is not exploiting, they're just supporting the Philippines.
But others remain skeptical.
Usually the stronger country has more say, bargaining chips against the smaller country, right?
Each year around Independence Day, progressive groups such as Bayan march through Manila. For these protesters, independence remains unfinished business. Nata Reyes leads these demonstrations.
China will continue to see the Philippines as a threat because we are hosting troops, we are hosting U.S. missiles, we are hosting U.S. warships on our territory. So that undermines our position. That undermines our negotiating posture with China. It is not in our national interest to be pursuing that kind of policy.
We put that question to President Marcos during his visit to the Oval Office.
It was about whether having U.S. missiles hosted in the Philippines could be considered escalatory by China.
All of what we consider part of the modernization of the Philippine military is really as a response to the circumstances that surround the situation around the South China Sea and now what we used to refer to as Asia Pacific, which we have expanded now to the Indo-Pacific. And if we would certainly, like in any kind of military spending, we would wish that it wasn't necessary. But it is.
So the translation is straightforward. The Philippines is pursuing the strategy because it sees it as a defensive necessity amid growing tensions in the South China Sea and the wider Indo-Pacific. At the same time, the Philippines could find itself drawn into conflict because of its geographic proximity to Taiwan and its deepening defense cooperation with the United States. Yet even as Manila and Washington repeatedly reaffirm their commitment to the treaty, this current administration has its attention on multiple fronts, from the Middle East to Latin America, while also seeking what both Washington and Beijing have called strategic stability in the relationship. This raises two questions. One, if a crisis were to erupt in the Indo-Pacific, would Washington be able to focus on the region? And two, has Manila incurred unnecessary risk by agreeing to host U.S. military assets?
The Mutual Defense Treaty is a piece of paper, but that piece of paper is useless if both countries will not respect it. I tend to believe that it is a piece of paper that is beneficial for both our countries, and that's the reason why it's been there for many, many years. It's the 75th anniversary also of the Mutual Defense Treaty.
Japhet Kiton believes that personal relationships between leaders may also matter.
I've been looking at how President Trump interacts with world leaders. I remember his meeting with President Marcos last year, where the president was quite complimentary to President Marcos and pointing out Filipinos in the room, saying, "You're very lucky to be from the Philippines," or "I'm very familiar with Marcos and his family, they're longtime friends." He has a soft spot for the Philippines, which I think has worked very much to the advantage of the alliance.
But the central tension remains. Every alliance depends on the strength and commitment of its partners. In this one, the imbalance is baked in. But for Foreign Secretary Tess Lazaro, the path to an equal partnership is not just through security, but through economics.
We believe that we can really evolve to have this equal partnership. It is already now our mantra, talking to our American friends, that for us to become politically, security strong, we have to make us economically strong. And I think they're going towards that direction. I think it's also their foreign policy not to handhold everyone, but to have this confidence in ourselves. So we'll see.
But like all relationships, this one is complicated. 80 years after independence, the Philippines has tied its future more closely to the United States, accepting both benefits and risks. But the alliance has never truly been tested. Both sides are still betting on what happens when it is.